Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello. Hey.
What?
You sounded real excited. Real pumped to be here.
I thought we were doing sweaty balls for a second. No one told me.
Today we're talking about 1988. And guess what? It's the last in the first round.
Yeah.
Because we've touched on we've touched all the years.
We've touched every year.
them
We
good.
have
closing
built
the
up
loop on
all
touching.
these years.
Them all over and put them back in the box. Yes. I was just thinking, I saw Brooklyn Nine-Nine last night where Scully and Hitchcock were fighting, and he was just licking one of the bagels and putting them back in the box. Yeah. So after this, we're not done. Just so you know.
No. Stop that.
Get that thought out of your head.
Yeah. Oh, you get more. It's coming at you.
We're gonna do all sorts of bonuses and stuff, but we're also returning to each of the years.
Yes.
Because every time there's more stuff that we haven't talked about.
More stuff.
So don't you get complacent, listeners.
Don't
you
do it.
unsubscribe.
Don't
Don't you do it.
Don't you dare.
I may just remove that so they don't get that
That's a
idea in
good
their
idea.
head.
We
Yeah.
need to just remove that function.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, that sounds like we
That
really have
function.
faith in our listeners.
Well, you regularly yell at them, so, it's fine.
You know,
Tough love.
Yeah.
sometimes you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get to 1988, let's do some unmitigated gall.
Woo!
As always. Heath, do you got something for us?
I do.
Excellent.
It's old men in trucks. That's what my unmitigated goal is.
I will second and third and fourth that. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I've found a lot lately. I get stuck behind old white men who
Yep.
drive these giant pickup trucks
Yes.
that are spotless, so you know they're not moving anything. They don't need these giant pickup trucks for like an actual use. They
These are not work trucks.
That's
Right.
an incredible clue you picked up on. Yeah.
Yeah. And they just drive slow as hell because they got nowhere to be. And just, I mean, if you want to drive slow as hell, wait till 8:30 when we're all at work. And go out and drive slow as hell like on a neighborhood road.
So they're driving slow as hell on your morning commute?
Yeah. Yeah. And you get stuck behind them. And I'm just like, I know your doctor's appointment's not for another hour and you just didn't have anything to do today. And you're just out here on the streets in my way.
Out here on the streets.
So go to your doctor, sit in the waiting room.
Yeah.
Go ask the receptionist every 5 minutes if it's your turn
Yes.
yet. Just go.
Let them handle it.
Yes.
That's what they're trained for.
Yes, that's what they're trained for.
Yep.
That's fact.
You're not trained to have to deal with those
No.
cars.
I shouldn't have to.
You're right.
No
I think
one
the
should have to.
older white men get, the bigger their trucks are.
Yeah.
And the cleaner they are.
Yeah. And the slower they drive.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Because I think, and this is also, I'm really projecting on these dudes. But I think they think they're sort of like keeping us all safe by going slow and like making sure no one can go too fast. And like they're really, the master of the road. So
See,
to
I
speak.
read it as like, I'm steps away from my family taking my keys away.
Yeah.
So I can't get a speeding ticket. I can't get in
Oh,
an
that could be
accident.
too.
But I got to cruise. It's in my
Yeah,
blood.
man. I got to
Yeah.
do it.
Not to be confused with cruising.
This isn't Al Pacino, but maybe Al Pacino's driving a truck around
could be.
in L.A.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no, Al.
Wow, stop it.
God damn it.
Yep. So
I like that one. You really got me.
Yeah.
old white men in their trucks.
Yeah.
Which I'd also like to, full disclosure, my father is an old white man with a great big truck. And so if he's bothering you up in the Cedar Falls area, I apologize on his behalf.
Yeah. I think this is a very good point. I saw a clip of a video because there's like what is this big cyber truck or something that's
Yes.
being advertised? And I saw like somebody was supposedly trying to show how agile their cyber truck is and how they could do it. And it was just backing up super slow. And the commenter was just like, this is what my grandpa does like on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
with his like Ford 150.
They
So
are
what are we doing?
weird looking.
Yeah, why?
There's
What
a
is
couple
the deal?
around where I live, and
Oh, of course there is.
well, and I only know because Mason took a picture and said, "Do you know what this is? It's a Cybertruck." And I was like, "Oh, this is aggressive for my 10-year-old." And then he came home. He's like, "I've never seen one in person." He was walking to his friend's house and took a picture of it, and I was like, "Well, if someone asked you to get in that vehicle, don't."
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good point. So we've transitioned from like don't get in vans during the 80s to don't get in Cybertrucks.
Yeah.
Don't get in anything Elon Musk made for sure.
No, absolutely.
And definitely don't get into trucks driven by old white men.
Because you're going to be late wherever you're going.
You'll probably be hijacked to the doctor's office.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll go next.
Okay.
My unmitigated gall is mosquitoes. Why do you have to love human blood so much, you perverts?
Did you get bit up by mosquitoes last week too? Because so did
Yes!
I. And they didn't. The bites didn't show up the next day. They were like over the course of like 3
Yes!
days. I kept
Really?
noticing more, and I'm like, "What's happening? Is
Yeah.
there like, do I have
And
critters in my bed? I didn't
exactly,
know.
that's where my head goes. Is like it can't all be from the same mosquito wing because there must be some other bugs.
And I can count the number of times I go outside on one hand in a week, so I know it's not like it's just happening regularly.
You know when it
Yeah.
is. And I don't know if you've seen a picture of the apparatus that they use to like do that. It gives me the same sort of feeling as like when I watched Pulp Fiction for the first time and there was Zed and the Gimp, that whole scene where you just
yeah.
feel like really
yeah.
uncomfortable and dirty.
Yeah.
Like that's what the mosquito's little proboscis thing reminds me of. Proboscis, that's the name of it.
I like it.
I'm going
Okay.
to start saying that mosquitoes are probing me instead of biting me.
I like
I'm
that
going
much
to change
better.
it to probing.
I like that,
That
a lot
is
better.
good.
I think too, mosquitoes like to watch us suffer
Oh, yeah.
because
Creeps.
You said that in such a nice voice. I think they like to watch us suffer.
because why do they have to be so itchy? And why does it have to feel so good to scratch them? So much so that you get them like all fucked up and then it's just open wounds like all over your arms. Like I
Yeah.
have them everywhere. And it's just disgusting, but it feels good.
She's oozing all over the place.
I'm
everybody.
oozing.
Oozing.
It feels like too this year they're super vicious and super powered, and I don't know what it's about. Maybe all the rain or something that we had in the spring, but they're disgusting and they're everywhere.
They're real juiced up.
I did some outdoor work last weekend, and I even wore pants, and I got bites through the pants.
Whoa.
That's-
What kind of pants?
I guess they were leggings, so
okay.
there's that. But still,
Still.
fabric.
But
You
that
went
just-
through fabric.
That just shows how dumb mosquitoes are. They're like, can't tell the difference between fabric and skin.
That's
Idiots.
a good point.
Idiots.
Yeah.
Right, idiots.
Also, I found out that the only mosquitoes that bite or probe are females.
Oh.
So it feels like they're doing that because they need a blood meal to lay their eggs. It
God.
feels like oh my god. We have had enough of women throwing other women under the bus. I am sick of it. And mosquitoes, I don't want you to contribute to the problem. I am
Don't be
sick
a
of it.
Republican, mosquitoes.
Don't do it.
Right.
Don't be a Republican white woman. That's gross. So
Well, that segues beautifully because my unmitigated gall is women throwing women under the bus.
fantastic.
So
Yeah, mine too.
we all knew that, 4th of July is prime time for weirdness.
Of course.
And, sometimes you're forced as parents to do things that maybe I wouldn't normally participate in. But I did have to attend a 4th of July parade. So I thought, if I'm going to attend a 4th of July parade, I'm going to make my own statement with a t-shirt. So let's be clear that my statement is real on the vanilla end of statements, okay? I'm on the low end. I bought a shirt that says Stars and Stripes and Reproductive Rights.
Beautiful.
And all I did during the parade was stand up whenever a political candidate had the option, and or a church. Stand up, just kind of show the shirt and move on. I didn't yell. I didn't do anything. I may at one point have clapped women's rights when they were shouting USA, but it was still mild. It was to myself. It was fine.
But also, I will say, this takes a lot of bravery because you went to the Urbandale Parade.
Yeah.
Where there's some real entitled people at that parade.
Yes.
And you went into the belly of the beast.
I did.
And you did it.
Yeah. So I'm wearing the shirt. A lady who I may mention sitting behind us during the parade on the sidewalk, which I thought was a weird choice because the sidewalk is like where people move. So generally you're in the grass area, but it come to find out she just thought we looked receptive enough to allow her kid to like rush up to the front in front of our kids and get the candy.
That sounds right.
And she's correct. I'm not going to not let a child get candy. So fine, you pegged me from that angle. As the parade is winding down and I turn around, she comes at me, towards me, and says, I wouldn't do that today. We're all Americans. And I didn't even process the nonsense of that statement.
doesn't
And I
make any
just said,
sense.
listen, women's rights can't take a day off. And I turned around and she huffed off. And Mike and some other people that were with us were like, did that just happen? I was like, yeah, I guess. I really pissed her off with this shirt. But I was like, you're female to female.
Yes.
Right.
I don't have the time to explain to you
No.
that I'm also fighting for your rights. You're clearly not voting for the right person.
Yeah.
But I'm still fighting for your rights. I'm still standing here saying that even your rights are important.
Yeah.
Because today we're all Americans. Does that mean that tomorrow I'm not because of my shirt or where my politics stand?
That's the thing. Say what she said again, because it makes no logical sense to me. Like,
I wouldn't do that today because today we're all Americans.
That doesn't. Yeah, that
doesn't
doesn't
make
make
any
any sense at
No.
all.
No.
Like, obviously, we understand you're a fucked up Republican woman, but, like, what? So your logic is out the window. But still, it makes no sense.
No. And okay. I don't even know where to begin or end with that. But on the other hand, I was like, well, I'm glad that my shirt ruffled some feathers.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
glad
true.
for that because you know what? That's what it was intended to do, I guess, when it really comes down to it. And it's a great story because Mike's been saying it to me all the time. Like, if something happens and like last night I was making dinner and I'm like, oh, shoot, I put that ingredient in. I meant to do it at the end and not right now. And he's like, I wouldn't do that today because we're all Americans. It's in completely nonsense situations all the time.
I mean, it makes as much sense as
Yeah,
it does to
it
that
does.
situation.
Yeah.
It's interesting, too, that, like, she didn't obviously get mad at, like, because in that parade there were politicians, right? There were churches. There were all sorts of people.
From both sides,
Yes, yeah. And she was fine with all that, apparently.
Yeah, which is odd.
I mean, first of all, blessings to you for calling her a lady. That's not the word I would have used.
Blessings to you. Yeah, thank you.
But I feel like in those situations, like I think she didn't think you were going to say anything back.
No,
Yeah.
she didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
I think she
Yeah.
thought she was going to zing you and you were going to be stunned and she was just going to march off. And what she said was stupid.
Yeah.
And you did
Yeah.
say something back.
I did, because, I mean, I don't even know if what I said made sense back, but it was what came to my head in the moment. Afterwards, because Mike and I always like to examine, like, what do you expect out of this situation?
Exactly.
Like, what was your best end game?
Yeah.
And Mike's like, what I wish you had done was take off your shirt and say, oh my God, you're right, I have failed. And just stand there in your bra and see what she did. Like, what was the point at that point?
And also, didn't she say she did it towards the end?
Yeah.
So, like, shouldn't she have done it at the very beginning if her end goal was to get
Right.
you to take the shirt off or cover it or something?
And my take on that is that her kid getting candy was more important than actually standing up for her beliefs because she waited until it was over, and that we have shown kindness and helped your child get candy amongst our children, and then decided to throw the barb and thought you were just going to walk away on that. Not
So she-
today.
Not today!
Not on America's birthday. Cripes. The unmitigated gall is sort of women throwing other women under the bus and also 4th of July antics.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just sort of
Yeah.
all wrapped together, isn't it?
And
Like-
mosquitoes!
And mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes were probably using America's birthday to just go to town.
And there were a bunch of old white guys driving trucks
Oh, my
in that
God,
parade.
yeah.
So
My dad was one of them.
They were, at least they were going the right speed in a parade. That
that's
was
true.
the speed
That's
you go in a
true.
parade.
That is the appropriate
Yeah.
speed. You're absolutely correct. Yes.
They were waiting for that day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Let's talk about 1988.
What a
Shall
time
we?
it was.
What a time it was.
What time it was.
Keith, did you turn 13 that year? Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so tell us, from your 12-year-old perspective, what was happening this year that you want to talk about?
I want to talk, speaking of America, about a film called Coming to America.
Yay!
It was released in 1988, in June of that year. Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall starred in that film. Eddie was Prince Akeem from Zamunda,
Zamunda.
who travels to the United States with his personal aide Semi, which is Arsenio Hall, to find a bride who will love him for him, not because he's a prince. And they head to Queens, New York, obviously, because that's where you go.
That's where you find queens.
Yeah, when you're looking for queens.
Yeah.
They rent an apartment and make some new friends at a local barbershop, who are also... Everyone in the barbershop, except for I think one person, is played by Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall. They head to a neighborhood fundraising event where no one's favorite band, Sexual Chocolate,
I was just going to say, sexual chocolate.
is performing. And the lead singer of Sexual Chocolate, Randy Watson, also known as the young man you all know as Joe the policeman from the What's Going Down episode of That's My Mama.
What?
That's the way they introduced him in the movie, and I love that line.
Okay.
He's also played by Eddie Murphy. And at the event, Akeem meets Lisa McDowell, and decides that's the one for him.
It's the one.
To get close to Lisa, Akeem and Semi take jobs at McDowell's, which is a fast food restaurant owned by her father, and it's a blatant ripoff of McDonald's, and not just like they wrote it this way for the movie. Like, that's the joke, is they're like, no, McDonald's has the Big Mac, and we've got the Big Mick, or whatever it
And
was.
McDonald's has the arches, and we have the, whatever it was.
Yeah. Lisa also has a boyfriend that Akeem has to deal with. Her boyfriend's name is Daryl, and who's played by Eric LaSalle, who you may know from ER if you watch that show.
Sure do.
And he's an entitled brat, and his father owns Soul Glow, which is a hairstyling product company.
You saying, this is my favorite part of this. You're saying every little piece of the movie, and Amy is having a visceral reaction to every moment. She's repeating it, singing. I love it. This is great.
I'm sorry, it's annoying.
No, it's good.
Love it.
It's solid.
This is the way all movies should be recommended, because it hypes you up to watch it.
And I think of that. I think of Soul Glow fairly often at the gym, because there's a scene in the movie where 3 people who are wearing it are sitting on a couch, and they were leaning against it, and they get up and move, and there's like, they've left a mark, where their hair product was. And at the gym, like, when people will sit on a machine, and their head will lean against it, and they'll get up and there'll be a sweat mark. Be like
Which they don't
dripping.
bother to clean up.
Right, they don't bother to clean
That's
up.
not right.
Yeah, that's pretty gross.
Yeah, I always think the song.
Yeah.
Let your soul glow. Well, Lisa isn't ready to marry Daryl, but he makes the mistake of telling their families that they're engaged, which prompts her to start dating Akeem. And Akeem is maintaining that he's poor, and his family are goat herders, like, throughout the whole thing. He still hasn't told her he's a prince. So his parents, the king and queen of Zamunda, eventually arrive in Queens, and they blow his cover, as kings and queens do. Lisa's upset that Akeem lied to her, and she refuses his marriage proposal. So Akeem returns to Zamunda with a broken heart, thinking he has to go through with his arranged marriage. But much to his surprise, when he lifts the bride's veil at the wedding, it turns out to be Lisa McDowell. She's had a change of heart, and all of Zamunda celebrates. And I mean, it's sweet, and it's a good way to end the movie, but it's also, I mean, I would, if I was her, I'd be like, so you were going to marry somebody else?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So I was just a maybe. You were going to
Yeah.
maybe slot me in.
Yeah.
Here we are.
I was a choice.
Yeah. Also, there's that scene in the beginning when they introduce the arranged bride.
Oh, yeah?
And it's clear she's been raised her whole life to do whatever Akeem wants. And so he asks her, like, what do you like? Whatever you like.
Yeah,
And he's like,
that's
bark
right.
like a dog. And then she starts barking like a dog and jumping on one leg. And yeah, it's bad.
bark like a big dog. I like that part. I like Louis Anderson's scene in it.
Yes.
He's also works at McDowell's, and his quote is, "Hey, I started out mopping the floor just like you guys, but now I'm washing lettuce. Soon I'll be on fries, then the grill. In a year or two, I'll make assistant manager, and that's when the big bucks start rolling in."
Also, when Samuel Jackson shows up, he's the robber.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like his first movie ever. And he tries to rob McDowell's, and Akeem lays him out. It's probably the first time Samuel Jackson ever got beat up.
I think that might have been the last time he got beat up in a movie, too. He did get eaten by that shark in Deep Blue Sea.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Sharks.
Yeah,
you know.
that's different.
That's that different, yeah.
And James Earl Jones is his daddy?
There's a lot of people in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned, I don't remember we were recording when you brought this up a couple weeks ago, but Don Amici and Ralph Bellamy, who starred in Trading Places as the two rich old white guys, and Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd are in Trading Places. At the end of that movie, they're broke. And so at this movie, they play two people living on the street that Akeem gives a stack of money to just because he wants to be rid of the money. And also,
we're back.
Cuba Gooding Jr. is in it. He's as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
He's in the barbershop, one of the barbershop scenes, getting his hair cut.
What?
Yeah. And Garcelle Bouvier from The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, she's in it. She plays someone who lives in Zamunda. I think she's like handing out flowers or something at the
She's an
wedding.
actress,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
I was
she
going to
is,
say, I
yeah.
didn't know she was Real Housewives. But
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. She's beautiful.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
And Eddie Murphy, the director of the movie, John Landis, he also directed Trading Places, and they got along fine on that movie. And so Eddie Murphy hired him to direct this movie. And apparently they didn't get along very well.
Oh, no.
making this movie because in the time between Trading Places and Coming to America, Eddie Murphy had become like a huge star. And I think that it sounds like that dynamic just changed. And on the first one, it was, John Landis was telling Eddie Murphy what to do. On this one, Eddie Murphy felt like, I'm the star. I'm the big name. I'm going to tell you what to do.
Which was probably fair because he could sell movies. Yeah.
They made a pilot of a TV show based off the movie that did not get picked up. They also made a sequel that came out a couple years ago that was not good. I watched it.
I did too.
It was not good. It was on, I think, Amazon Prime or Hulu or something.
I watched it because this is one of those movies that when Mike and I were first together, he brought up one time and I was like, I've never seen it. And he, within a day wanted to immediately correct that. So I watched it. So then when the sequel came out, we're like, well, we have to watch it.
Did Mike like the sequel?
No.
Yeah.
He was like, okay, but should have left it alone if this is what you were going to do,
Yeah, it did not add anything to the Coming to America canon, I wouldn't say.
No.
So I really appreciate that Mike was like, this is something I'm willing to die on a hill for. Like, we need Aaron to see this.
That comes up a lot. Like, I'll say, because I have a gap in my pop culture, as we know.
Yeah.
And he'll say a movie, and I'm like, I never saw that. And he'd be like, okay, I'll find out where it's streaming. Like, it's almost like a chore now where he's like, oh my God, this lady, what the?
He's like, we got to rectify this Catholic school situation.
My only remark about Coming to America is just to paraphrase Reverend Brown, who's one of the characters played by Arsenio Hall, is that Coming to America is so good, someone ought to put it on a plate and sop it up with a biscuit.
Oh, yes. Sexual chocolate.
Amazing.
Reverend Brown's actually the one who introduced sexual chocolate.
I
which
remember.
is funny that there's one of the not obvious jokes in the movie is that a reverend is like, here's the band, Sexual Chocolate.
Well, I was at the end of the performance, which is, I believe the children are our future.
Yes.
Yeah. And Eddie Murphy, as the lead singer, throws the mic, he's like, sexual chocolate, and just throws a tantrum on the stage because people aren't getting excited enough or clapping enough, and makes me very happy.
It is. It's great.
Well, I will follow it up with another movie
Ooh.
that I could quote and talk about forever, which is Beetlejuice.
Nice.
Oh.
Did you talk about that? Okay, good. Yep. So I was like, there was a toss-up on which movies we were going to talk about this year.
Not for me.
Beetlejuice is such a bizarre story that should not work in any way.
No.
But it works so freaking well, mainly, I think, because of Tim Burton and because of the people he brought on to the movie. And just, it's Michael Keaton in, the height of his crazy comedy performances. And it's just fantastic. So Barbara and Adam, which are Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, are a young couple in a small Connecticut town. They're redoing their house. They go to that small town to get some, stuff for the house. And then they drive off a bridge and die. But then, that happens in the first 5 minutes. But then they come home and they find there's a handbook for the recently deceased in their home. They also find that if they try to leave their home, there's a whole sandworm and desert situation outside their house. So they're like, okay, so this is not good.
That's the way I feel when I try to leave my house during the farmer's market.
A sandworm sitch. Yeah, you
Yes.
don't want that. The house, meanwhile, because they're dead, is sold. And it's sold to a real estate developer, Charles, and his ridiculous artist wife, Catherine O'Hara. Just prime in this movie, and their teen daughter, the baby goth of all goths, Lydia, played by a young Winona Ryder. And side note, Alyssa Milano almost got this role.
Oh, gosh. No.
Really?
Can you imagine that? Because I cannot.
No.
With their designer, Otho, they gut the house, and that's when Barbara and Adam check the handbook and find a way to the afterlife, which is like the DMV for ghosts, which is this wonderful joke that keeps going on, is that there's this massive bureaucracy with all of the dead people that it's just, you can't get past it. It's the long waits and the long lines and everything's fantastic. And their caseworker says that Barbara and Adam have to stay in the house for 125 years or get rid of the new family themselves. It's the only ways out of this situation. Nothing works, though. They're trying to be ghosts. They're trying to be scary. Lydia can see them because, she says she herself is strange and unusual. So she can see them. No one else can see them or hear them or anything. So Adam and Barbara get increasingly desperate, and they see an ad for a bioexorcist named Beetlejuice. And the way to call him is to say his name thrice, which they do.
How many times do you have to say Candyman's name to get him to show up? It's not three times.
Is it
Is
three
it
times?
5? That seems like they should get their own thing.
That's
It should be the
true.
same.
But then Bloody Mary is also 3 times, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So this must be a 3-time trope that we're dealing with here.
There's a lot of threes in the Bible. Like a lot
Oh.
of like Father, Son, Holy Ghost, like
Oh, that's
Trinities
true.
and-
3 wise men.
Yeah, 3 wise men.
So that's what's happening is Beetlejuice is like the Bible, and we're calling him forth. Okay.
Pretty sure Jesus died when he was 33.
Yeah, he was. Because when I turned 33, I said it was my Jesus year. I was real excited.
I got married when I was 33.
You did. That was
Yeah,
your Jesus
yeah.
year. You were ready to go.
I think I was. Go on with your story. Let me do some math.
So they've called this bioexorcist. They summon him forth, and I think it's maybe the best entry in all of movie-dom, which is Michael Keaton showing up as Beetlejuice. And he emerges in this wackadoodle glory. He quickly shows he's a crank, he's a freak, and not in a good way. He's a real asshole in so many ways. So now the situation is even worse because they can't scare the owners out and they can't get rid of Beetlejuice. And then Otho, who is trying to get an investor in this crackpot scheme because he finally realizes, oh, there's ghosts here. We can get people to see the ghosts and pay money. He does a seance, and he summons Adam and Barbara forward, who slowly decay in front of everyone. But Lydia, she's like, okay, I know how to fix this. And she goes looking for Beetlejuice, and he says, yeah, I'll help you if you marry me, which is super gross because she's like 14 in this movie at most. But we've established he's a perv. So he arrives because she says yes, and makes the situation so much worse. But there's this wonderful finale that involves sandworms, a red wedding dress, and finally a truce between the families. So the movie, one of my favorites as a kid. Probably no surprise to any of you that know me.
Yeah.
Also, one of our neighbors, once this movie came out, started dressing up as Beetlejuice every Halloween. And it was really intricate and really good. And the first couple years, we're like, that's so awesome. And then it just kept going. We're like, oh, is this just sad now? Is this like his one day of the year to shine in his Beetlejuice costume? I don't know.
I had an immediate reaction to that I did not like.
And it was his chance to like do the voice and everything. So it felt like maybe this was his community theater.
I was just going to say, okay, all right.
What was his other job the rest of the time?
No idea.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I even knew this dude. But I think he lived like behind us or something. But yeah, he was the
Steam
Beetle.
fitter.
He was. He's probably a plumber or something,
Yeah.
and probably did his impressions to all of his clients.
Yeah, you're
they
right.
probably hated that. And then the final note is there's a sequel coming this fall, which it's got Winona Ryder, it's got Michael Keaton, it's got Catherine O'Hara and Jenna Ortega. It could be really cool. It could be a super travesty.
Yeah.
Because Michael Keaton doesn't have a great record of recreating his characters like The Flash. You know, that did not do so well.
No.
So I am cautiously optimistic. I will see it because I have to.
You have to, yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to try and keep my expectations real low. Did you see this when you were a kid?
I did. Only
Really?
Because one of my good friends, who is the only reason that I have as much pop culture knowledge as I did, shout out to Kayan, she liked it a lot.
Okay.
And so I remember watching it with her
Okay.
at her house. Yeah, she was a fan of this. Like, I saw this with her. I saw Tremors. She loved that. Twister. There was another one. What was the one with Reality Bites?
Yes.
Yeah, she had a very good, like,
Was she also in your school?
yeah.
Oh, but her parents weren't as Catholic as yours. Okay, got it.
Yeah, she had some great. She was the one that would make us mix tapes, and they were
nice.
the best mixtapes you could ever get. Yeah, they were phenomenal.
Okay,
so,
shout out to her.
yeah, shout out to her for helping. a
Otherwise,
little.
there'd be no podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just be sitting here like, what happened?
Who's Michael Keaton?
Yeah, what? Yes. Well, you guys might find this shocking, but I brought a movie from 1988. And there was a 2-minute moment when I was doing research that I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. Like, one of them is
You
doing
absolutely
it. And then
should.
I was like, neither of them are picking this movie. It's called The Land Before Time.
Oh.
Which is an animated adventure film that was produced by George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. And if you don't remember this, it was an animated, it's dinosaurs. I'm going to shorthand it and just use their names because the dinosaur names are all written out. I don't know how to pronounce half of them because they were very specific. But Littlefoot is the main character. And this movie starts with Littlefoot, adorable, and then it just comes in really strong for a kid's movie because Littlefoot's mother is killed by a T-Rex.
Of course.
In front of him.
Oh, jeez.
And he now must find the Great Valley where his grandparents are by himself.
Why do animated movies always got to kill the parents and make these
Right
poor
away.
orphan kids go on a quest?
On a quest! To this area that apparently has been spared by its devastation and starvation, everything you can... That's where you need to go, is the Great Valley. Again, as we go through this, you're going to have questions, and that's natural. Because why would grandparents leave and not take their family with them? Why did any of the parents leave and not wait for their children? These are valid questions.
But they're dinosaurs.
But do the grandparent dinosaurs even want their grandchild to come stay with them?
I feel when you get to the end that's the overriding theme. Yeah, is like they were looked at this as like Boca Raton, Florida.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, this is our retirement.
Right. We
Why
raised our children.
Yeah.
stay in the famine, you little pipsqueak. So on his journey, he finds friends. Sarah, Ducky, Purdy, and Spike.
I love there's a dinosaur named Sarah.
Sarah, yeah. They're different types of dinosaurs, and they have to overcome their differences to work toward the common goal, which is finding their parents/grandparents in the Great Valley. Because some of these friends, like their parents, left them there.
Oh, jeez.
What is wrong with these family dynamics?
I don't know. So they all have to travel together, and eventually they defeat what they call a sharp tooth, which is a T-Rex, and are reunited with their families in the Great Valley. Now, I have a visceral memory of this movie for two specific reasons. One, I watched it, and I can remember as a child, I was 7, when I saw this, like a deep, deep sadness in my bones after I watched this movie. I thought that was horrific. Like, that was a rough cinematic experience. But then, it also spawned all kinds of merchandise, particularly a partnership with Pizza Hut. And they were handing out hand puppets when you ordered like a personal pan pizza, right? They were plastic, so they're not like, but I'm going to reveal something about myself this time, and it is what it is, but I had an affinity for puppets. I loved puppets. Okay. Our local library would rent out like hand puppets in bags, like you could check them out, much to my mother's distaste because she was always like, are they washed? Like, why are we taking these home?
I mean, these are valid questions.
It was a valid question. Yeah. But there was a whole line of them because there's a big part of Mason City history that involves this puppet guy that helped make a lot of the Muppets and stuff. And so part of the library was kind of dedicated to him, and you had these puppets you could take home. So, and everyone in Mason City is going to be mad that I can't remember that name. But that's fine.
You know what I can do in editing is just dub it over. It'll be like, Stan over, your words.
I've seen a podcast, you can have me record a snippet that says Future Aaron says that. This is the name.
There you go.
So, anyway, I wanted all those hand puppets. I just needed them bad. Even though I didn't love the movie or I found it a little bit disturbing, I was like, I'm going to need all these. So this is a mission. I don't remember specifically if I did get them all because, I mean, there's quite a few that they released. But most what I was left with, though, was why would adults leave in that situation? And that's a thing that I carried around for a lot of years. Yeah. Like, at what point do my guardian figures just decide to go to the Great Valley and I stay here? And upon research for this episode, I found that, like, they cut out a ton of stuff out of that movie that was, like, objectively worse than just that overwhelming. They said there was, like, way more fight scenes, and the scene with the T-Rex was way longer. And it came down to, like, the final cuts. Like, I mean, they were ready to go. It was ready.
So they were making an R-rated animation.
Yeah, and Steven
kids.
Spielberg was like, we're gonna, like, his quote is like, we're gonna have kids crying in the lobby and parents pissed. Like, we don't want that. We gotta get some of this out. And I was like, well, you went from kids crying to kids just having existential dread for years based on The Land Before Time. So they tried. They did sequels. They did other, like, they tried to do a series on it. I remember there was everything related to this movie, but
I have seen a bunch on social media of a lot of people traumatized by this movie. Mm-hmm. That like I can't even remember now, but lots of clips of just like, you know, what was this? Like,
Yeah.
you know, how were we supposed to recover kind of thing. And I think I remember seeing it and feeling the same way of just like, it felt like, you know, Bambi and Fox and the Hound and all the like super sad stuff that just gave you
Yes.
that feeling of like,
Yeah.
nothing is right in the world.
no, nothing will ever be okay.
Because I'm sure before seeing the movie, a lot of kids probably never thought that their parents
Oh,
would
gosh.
just leave them.
Yeah.
You know?
No. I mean, overwhelming. You're like, I guess they just didn't want them. They were going to let them get eaten by T-Rexes.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's
I mean,
just-
that's, you know.
separate from the fact that you watch Littlefoot's mother die.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, it was a toughie, but I remember it so specifically. Like when this came up for 1988, I was like, wow,
There it
way
is.
before time.
Can we return to puppets?
Yes, we absolutely can. Yes.
What do you, I mean, obviously it was in the library, so you were seeing a lot, but what do you think it was about puppets that like you liked so much?
I think it was the early part of me before like writing took over that part. It was very creative. Like I never wanted puppets that already had like a storyline. I wanted the weird ones that were like, didn't come from anywhere. They were
Yeah.
just created, you know, they didn't already have a backstory. And I loved that type of thing. I loved creating the story. I loved the adventure of it. I could make it all happen. And there's
that's
something I
sweet.
think acting it out that I enjoyed too. And this isn't anything I did. Well, that's not true. I did have a friend that we would always do fake news broadcasts like SNL, but we would sometimes use the puppets to be correspondents, like in the field.
You were advanced in your comedy,
Yeah, I mean,
appreciation
yeah.
and performance.
We tried to make it topical.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
for as topical as you can be as like a 7 and 8
Yeah,
year old,
right.
you know. So,
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. You were a storyteller.
yeah.
Did
I
you
did
ever
love
to be a
this.
puppeteer?
No, I wasn't
Okay.
good at it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I knew that was like a more advanced technique. I did for a while consider like, could I be ventriloquist? No, I could not.
I love learning these tidbits about each other.
Yeah.
What do you got that will take us away from puppets and Aaron?
Well, I don't want to go away from puppets.
I
and
know.
Aaron, but if I have to.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Let's talk about the movie Big.
Yes.
It's a Tom Hanks film. He plays the adult version of a 12-year-old whose name is Josh Baskin. And the story begins with Josh trying to impress a girl, but is embarrassed because he's too short to go on a carnival ride with her. And it's a surprisingly touching film, considering it was inspired by some kid's case of little man syndrome. Apparently, like, it was based on a real, like, a kid who couldn't grow up. He was just tiny.
What?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Well, that was loosely based then, because this
Yeah.
went in weird directions.
yeah. So after Josh gets shut down by a carny, he finds a Zoltar fortune teller machine and wishes that he was big, right? So the machine spits out a card that says your wish is granted, and that is when Josh noticed that the machine has been unplugged the entire time he's been using it. So he wakes up the next morning as a 30-year-old man and promptly scares the shit out of his mom, who chases him out of the house because she thinks he's a burglar/pervert.
Mercedes rule.
Yeah.
As well.
So Josh heads to school and explains the situation to his friend Billy, who doesn't believe him at first, but realizes he's telling the truth when Josh sings a song to him. So if any young people are listening, this is strange behavior. Grown men should not be singing songs to kids they just met outside of middle school. If you see it, say something. You
Yeah.
know? It's not normal, should not be tolerated.
Even though the song was super catchy and
Yeah.
I memerized it all.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would like to hear that now, please.
Okay. Downtown, baby, downtown. Da-da-da-da. Nope, I'm gonna forget it all. And the performance anxiety. Shimmy, shimmy, cocoa pop, shimmy, shimmy, right. That's it.
I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I love it. Billy and Josh decide the only way out of this predicament is to track down the Zoltar machine, but it has disappeared in the night with the carnies. They discover that it will be back in the area in 6 weeks, so they rent a shithole room in New York City, and Josh gets a job as a data entry clerk at a toy company. Josh runs into the toy company's CEO at FAO Schwartz and impresses him by playing a giant piano together. You know, that's kind of a famous scene where they're jumping around. And this scores Josh an invite to a marketing meeting.
That's right.
That's how I think all marketing meetings happen.
Yes.
During which he declares the toy being pitched is not fun, which is damning. Damning feedback. He shares a few better ideas, but Paul, the guy who was pitching the not fun toy, he's pissed. Obviously, Josh is soon promoted to vice president of product development and starts dating his colleague Susan, who used to date Paul because Josh is an absolute savage, apparently. He's just going to ruin this dude's life.
Yes.
Josh and Susan work together to come up with a new toy, with some new toy ideas, and Billy finds out that the Zoltar machine is back in the area. So Josh bolts from his big marketing meeting. This movie's got so many marketing meetings.
Many.
That's what happens.
To go to Zoltar, and Susan follows him. He makes a wish to go back to being a kid and tries to get Susan to do the same thing, but she declines because how fucking weird would that have been? Like, where is she gonna live? Like.
And like, why would she want? Yeah.
Well, doesn't she say, like, I've already done
Yeah.
that. That was rough. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Susan does agree to drive him back to New Jersey, though, where he turns back into a kid and is reunited with his family, who thought he'd been kidnapped the whole time.
That was my fault. I haven't seen this movie, so my follow-up question was, where did his family think he was?
They just thought he'd been abducted.
This would be a good one with the kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
So listen to this list of actors that were considered for the lead role in this movie that was played by Tom Hanks. Harrison Ford.
What?
Kevin Costner. Can you imagine Kevin Costner?
No, he's not fun.
Steve Guttenberg. Maybe. Warren Beatty?
Nope. Nope. That's
What
not
were they
we
trying
need.
to do?
That's not what we need with this situation.
Dennis Quaid.
Really?
Yeah.
What they were like had a very tight cast for a while, like of what they thought this should
Yeah.
Matthew Modine
be. Oh,
and Jeff Bridges. All of these people were considered for this role. John Travolta wanted to play the role, but the studio did not want him. This was in between the Travolta, like in between Saturday Night Fever and
Pulp Fiction.
and Pulp Fiction. Yeah, he was not hot. Gary Busey auditioned, but the director didn't think he could pull off playing the adult version.
What?
She's like, he did well at the child part, but I don't believe him, or I don't believe that he could do
be
that.
an adult?
Yeah.
Neither do we. Yeah,
Right.
that's a good call.
That's very valid.
Robert De Niro was actually cast in the lead, but then later had to drop out because there were scheduling conflicts. And
What?
Then he was replaced by Tom Hanks. Yeah.
I mean, I know we're looking at it from the bias of, like, we've only seen Tom, and he was so wonderful in it, so it's hard to imagine anybody else. But, yeah, they went right with Tom Hanks.
They did.
They did.
Penny Marshall, who you may know from Laverne and Shirley, and she directed A League of Their Own. She directed this movie, too. It was the second movie she had directed. The first was Jumping Jack Flash, starring Whoopi Goldberg. It was the first movie directed by a woman to gross more than $100 million.
Feminism.
Uh-huh.
We're all Americans, Heath.
All Americans, not today.
The movie also earned Tom Hanks his first Academy Award nomination for Best Actor.
Really?
Uh-huh. And it was nominated for Best Screenplay as well. It was written by Anne Spielberg, sister of Steven Spielberg.
Well, that's a weird Thanksgiving. Steven Spielberg is like, I did this super sad dinosaur movie.
Yeah.
And she's like, cool, I did big.
Well, I read somewhere when I was reading about this that he had considered directing it, but he chose not to because he didn't want to overshadow her. Like, he didn't want it to
That's
become a
decent.
Steven
Yeah.
Spielberg thing.
Is it decent, or is it like, well, I was going to do it, but I didn't
That's
because
true.
I wanted
And
you to have your moment.
Instead, I'm going to go traumatize a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
So,
Well, even despite not seeing it, I do know the plot of, loosely knew the plot of it and the piano scene. Like, you see the Zoltar, I've seen some of that stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It was even as a kid, I remember thinking this is kind of gross that the older woman and this kid in an older man's body are literally having sex, and like it's
Yeah. That's a tough one.
but it was great. Loved it. Well, my next one, we're going over into music. I know we've been hitting a hard film, but now we're entering music, and we are going with Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. Now, this came out in 1987, but it was in 1988 that it hit real big and went real wide. And eventually the album went on to be the 7th best-selling album of all time in the U.S., and it's one of the best-selling albums globally. So let's paint a picture of where music was at during this time.
Paint me a word picture.
Sammy Hagar for Van Halen. Poison, Motley Crue, Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, they're all really hitting around this time. We've got huge hair. We've got gender-bending clothes, but no one will call them gender-bending.
No.
It's very masculine. This
Super
eyeliner is so masculine. And notorious touring stories. Okay. And they were all giving parents a heart attack for their look and their supposed love of the devil. Like, all the covers had some sort of demonic thing or whatever. Your parents were probably like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
But they wouldn't say fuck because that's blasphemy.
Right.
But when it came down to it, the songs were often very polished and even about love or partying or whatever. And into this comes Guns N' Roses. And the very first song on the album is Welcome to the Jungle. And it starts with this insane riff, and Axl Rose's voice is really unique, and it's sort of ghostly and weird. And the lyrics are super scary. It's, I want to watch you bleed. And you know where you are? You're in the jungle, baby. You're going to die. Now let's paint another picture. I'm in 6th grade.
Oh. Okay.
I'm at a sleepover with other 11-year-olds. We wake up in the morning. It's someone's basement. I think the girl's name is Heather. I'm not sure, but I can picture the basement.
Okay.
And we're in our sleeping bags. And Heather's older sister comes down the stairs. She's maybe like a freshman or sophomore in high school, but she has a cassette with her. And I don't know what's going through her head other than, I'm going to blow these little girls' minds. And she puts the Appetite in the player. And I remember it so clear. Like, my jaw just fucking dropped. I was like, I don't know what this is. And it's scary, but I love it. And Heather's sister, you could tell, like, she didn't know the words yet. And it's real, it's kind of fast and whatever. And there's a line where it's, you're a very sexy girl. And Heather's sister was like, girl, like screaming over the line.
I got one.
Yeah. And I have no idea who this girl is or where she ended up or her name, but she changed me. So whoever you are, older sister.
You did it.
Soon after, the song Welcome to the Jungle was paired with the intro of Lean on Me. Do you remember that movie?
Yes.
With Morgan Freeman?
I was just thinking of it. I was like, it was called Stand By Me, but you're right. It's Lean on Me.
And he was a teacher brought into a really rough inner city school named East. And the song plays at the beginning where students are beating up on each other and they're beating on a teacher. Like, it's really rough, and this song is playing. And yeah, it was great. Now, of course, the album is a classic. It's rock, it's metal, it's punk, it's all these things. It's got the songs Paradise City and Sweet Child of Mine, which went on to be classics. It was supposed to have November Rain on it, but that was left off because they were like, we already got a ballad. We got to go hard rock.
Oh.
Of course, looking at it now, there's some pretty suspect stuff and stories and lyrics. Misogynist, all the greatest hits. And the final song, the story's real gross. The song is called Rocket Queen. And Adriana Smith was someone dating the drummer of Guns N' Roses, and she came to the studio one day. And Axl convinced her to have sex with him in a recording booth so that they could record her noises and put it over the song, which they did.
But she couldn't do it with her own boyfriend?
Nope. And she did it for a bottle of Jack Daniels and for the glory of the band. They then used her noises, like I said, in the song, and she went on to have a lot of drug problems and shame and all that stuff later.
Shoot.
There's also stories that maybe it wasn't just Axl, that she was sort of passed around the band. Yeah. Because every dude in arts has to be fucking creeps. Yeah. That's what we've learned. Of course, I didn't know that, and I just loved Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
And I was super annoyed later in 1988 because they were getting really famous, so the studio or whatever was like, we got to put out another song now, or got to put another EP. So they recorded Patience, and it's a much slower song. And when it came out on the radio, I remember being in the car with my mom and saying, like, this song sucks or something. Like, it's so slow. And my mom was like, just wait until you're in high school and you're dancing with a boy to this. You're going to love it. And in my mind, I was like, no, I'm fucking not. That's disgusting.
That's a weird way to describe liking a song.
Well, that's, par for the course. So, Appetite for Destruction by Amy Lee Lillard. But it's funny that of all the blank spots in my memory, that sleepover is one. I do vaguely recall being somewhat uncomfortable, like not knowing the girls very well, not knowing why I'm there. Again, I didn't understand friendship, still don't. But it's but just knowing that, that girl the next morning was like, she changed my life.
The way you ended that made me feel like it was a book report at one time, and I really hope that it was, because that's phenomenal.
Nope.
Well, remember a few years ago when we all watched the spectacle that was Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing?
Sure do.
And we wished for a better time.
Yeah.
Maybe one with less anger and less beer. Well, 1988 delivered a very different result, but sort of on the same lines. We had a Senate confirmation hearing that would go down in history for a Supreme Court justice. Didn't make the cut, unlike Kavanaugh, though. Oh. And Robert Bork was nominated.
Sounds cute.
Yeah, he's hot. Definitely. Nominated to the Supreme Court by Ronald Reagan in 1987. It was a controversial choice at the time because Bork played a part in the Saturday Night Massacre, which is known as part of the Watergate scandal, where they fired a bunch of people that probably shouldn't have been fired to cover up all these crimes that were happening. He was involved in that. And he was considered sort of a legal scholar around the time, but very controversial in terms of party. Like, he was kind of in favor of, like, rolling back some of the civil rights. And he had obviously
cool.
this is post Roe v. Wade. I know this is confusing because now we're in the pre-Roe v. Wade world again, but this was post that, and he was very strong about saying he wanted to go back to like pro-life things. So
great.
The Democrats were like not having it, and they were fighting it. But then a real attention whore of a journalist stepped in to help.
Ooh.
Michael Dolan of City Paper in Washington, D.C. realized when he went to the same video rental place as Bork. And now we're in 88, right? So we're getting headed into the confirmation hearings. And he thought, I wonder if I could get them to give me his whole rental history.
Oh my God.
And they did. They went ahead and Xeroxed it.
It was probably some teenager like, sure, I don't care.
Yeah, Xeroxed it right out of the notebook because there wasn't even like computer records of it at this time. It was handwritten entries of what he rented, which is a great old system to think about.
That is hilarious.
So what's disappointing for Michael Dolan is that he found absolutely nothing of interest other than the fact that Bork had rented 146 videos in a 2-year span.
Okay.
So the best they could come up with was calling him the Supreme Couch Potato. And publishing this list of videos, which objectively, like, there wasn't really anything on there.
So that's not that many. 146.
I mean, there's 52 weeks in a year. So
that's true.
I mean,
who rents? I mean, at the time, at least, like in my rental history, like I never rented just one movie.
No, yeah.
And
if you think about like our watching now, that's not very much
right?
at all.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so he ended up actually losing the confirmation in a very intense hearing that was like widely watched because of this whole thing with his video rental history. And then he inadvertently helped pass a bill in 1988 because all these senators were like, you know what, I don't think I want my rental history out there. And the bill is dubbed the Bork tapes. And it is now called the Video Protection Privacy Act, which basically means that your video rental history falls under intellectual property and should not be shared without like warrants or subpoena, whatever that it may be. So what I would like to say in this fine year of 2024 is congratulations, Bork. Your multiple viewings of comfort and joy really cemented your place in history. Congratulations on not becoming a Supreme Court justice.
Okay, 2 things. One, all those senators were like, shit, do they have my porn records?
That's, yeah.
Do they have my gay porn records? And two, what was it that they ultimately were just like, nah, it was his controversial stance. It wasn't really to do with the movies
they
or
had
anything.
more to do with that. Yeah, they didn't really, that didn't really play a part.
Yeah.
But Michael Dolan went on to say, like, that it shouldn't be called the Bork tapes. It should be called the Dolan Amendment because I'm the
my
one that
God.
found. Yeah, he like really went deep in it. And in the article, people kind of took a little issue with his journalistic integrity because he didn't find anything in there, but he like hinted, like, I was waiting in line for the thing thinking I'm going to find porn or, you know, really offensive material. And then, but there wasn't any of that. So it's like it led the reader to think that. And one of those times where, which we see a lot nowadays in information of like, here's the headline, but it actually means nothing.
So it was clickbait before there was clickbait.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was absolutely clickbait. And if you see a picture of the guy, I mean, he looks like a guy that might be like, his picture might be on a bag of popcorn now. Like, he just like.
Bork?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just very.
Like Orville Redenbacher?
Yeah.
Is he still alive?
I don't believe so.
I was going to say he'd be an old man driving a truck around.
Yeah, because he was an
Yeah.
old man in 1988.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, I bet he was driving a truck around then.
he probably was right to the video store. And that was something that they like commented on, was that he rented the movie Comfort and Joy multiple times.
I don't know what that is.
I don't either, but
It kind of sounds like porn.
Sounds like a holiday movie.
yeah,
Oh, it
that's what
does,
I.
you're
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah. If I put it in like, it would be like a Kristen Hanna movie now, like that author. That's like what it
yeah.
reminds me of.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I just thought that it's interesting that in 1988 we were able to oust someone based on a nothing video rental record,
Yeah.
and some stances. But in, you know, the year of Brett Kavanaugh, we were able to just say, you know what, actually, the way you attack
fine.
women's great, and we
Assault
love all
is
this stuff.
fine.
Yeah, it's great. You should definitely make choices for the whole country.
We don't want to ruin his career.
No, he's such a nice guy.
Yeah, and he's made some really good rulings.
He's a family man.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to
He can
vomit.
suck a big dick.
All I think of when I think of Brett Kavanaugh now is Matt Damon playing Brett Kavanaugh
Absolutely.
on SNL and flipping those pages.
Yeah. Just coming in and be like, what?
I like beer.
I'm going to start at 11.
So,
Can I also say, congratulations on your use of Bork and your commitment to the pronunciation again and again.
I couldn't get over it.
I feel like instead of fuck for a while, I'm just going to say Bork.
Bork.
Ah, Bork.
Oh, bork it.
Bork off.
I like
Mother
that.
Borker. Jesus.
Borkin.
Jesus,
Oh, I was
Borkin
gonna say
Christ.
something way worse after Borkin. Good Lord.
Well, I'm going to talk about music too, Amy.
Oh my God, let's do
I
it.
like to do what you do.
Yeah, you do. Well, I like to do what you do, so we're just copying each
yay.
other.
So I got a list of the top, Billboard Magazine's top 10 songs of 1988.
Oh, this is going to be enlightening.
It is. The top song of 1988, according to Billboard Magazine, was Faith by George Michael.
Oh, yes.
George Michael wrote this song, and it was originally not going to be released as a single. The original version was only a couple minutes long. And so it was just going to be like an album track, you know, like between other songs that did get released. But the people working on the album with Michael were digging it and convinced him to make the song longer. And he did. And it ended up being the biggest song of the whole year.
You can't deny starting with an organ. And then
And
just
I bet he added that just to, add it, another 20 seconds to it. That probably wasn't there to begin with.
And also the little, a little jab at the church.
Uh-huh. The song I Want Your Sex was the previous single released by George Michael. And I remember when I was in 6th grade, which was around now, and I don't remember if I've told this story in this podcast before, but it's worth telling again.
Oh.
There was a kid in 5th grade, his name was Justin, who would bring a boombox out on the playground every day during recess, and he would play I Want Your Sex very loudly, just repeatedly.
Oh my God.
And I would have loved to have heard the teachers talk about this, and the teachers loud just be like, "Oh my God, you guys, he did it again."
Like
Did
this
no one
little...
stop it ever?
I remember a teacher going over there and like saying, do you maybe want to turn this down? And it was sort of like, I think he was like, this First Amendment, I've got freedom of
Oh my
speech or whatever.
God.
Like, and it was just like, no, you're like, he was I remember he was a short kid, and I don't know if this was just like a,
short
short
kid
man
energy.
syndrome type thing. But I just remember,
So they took pity on him and let him play it. They're like, let him have it.
Yeah.
Let
So
him
this is
have it.
public school versus Catholic school
Yeah.
right now. We're seeing the difference. Yeah.
Which is funny because now, I mean, if a kid did this, obviously, you know, I mean, they would be, people would be outraged, you know.
Yeah. They'd be sent to jail or something.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, now they just send it to each other on their phones, and they'd all put an AirPod in while the teacher was talking. And listen to it, and they'd be like, "Good one, Justin," and then go back to history.
yeah.
The number 2 song from Billboard magazine from 1988 is "Need You Tonight" by NXS.
That's a good one.
I don't really remember a ton about the song, but I do remember in the video there was a white rat that was crawling up the arm of Michael Hutchence as he performed the song, but like in a nice way. Like it seemed like a clean, fun, friendly rat.
He was just vibing on the song.
But the part that was weirder to me was that the singer was just wearing a leather jacket and no shirt underneath it, and made me wonder, like, what temperature is it where you are? But you need a leather jacket on, but nothing underneath it.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Michael Hutchence was pretty hot.
And did you have to baby powder before you did that? Because I feel like that would like be.
Oh man, he came. There was just rashes everywhere after he took that off.
That's the kind of adult I am. I think what?
The video did win the Video of the Year award at the MTV
It was the
Video
Rat.
Music Awards that year. Yeah, I think it was the Rat. Go Rat. Team Rat.
Team rat. We're all Americans, Heath.
Number 3 is "Got My Mind Set on You" by George Harrison. And this song's actually a cover of a song originally recorded by someone named James Ray from 1962.
You can suck it, James Ray. No one remembers you.
He,
Strong stance on James Ray.
go to hell, James Ray.
I always hated you, James Ray.
I don't know why I went so hard at him, but I did, and I stand by it.
Stand in your truth.
George Harrison heard the song when he was visiting his sister in Illinois when he'd gone record shopping. This was like when the Beatles had one of the first times they came to the country. And so, yeah, he remembered it and he decided to record it.
Do you remember that video? Where it was like the toy thing or the claw thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just a full video of trying to get the claw to select the thing, and he's got my mind set on you. It was super annoying.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's awful.
Yeah.
I don't like watching that in real time. That's just on a video.
The next one is "Never Gonna Give You Up" by Rick Astley.
Oof.
It was a big hit back in the day, but I think most people now remember it from Rickrolling from a few years ago. When you send someone a link and tell them it's one thing, and they click on the link, and it takes you to the video for "Never Gonna Give You Up," which I think is where I assume this is where cyber criminals got the idea for malware, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It got to be so popular. Rickrolling got to be so popular that Rick Astley rickrolled the Cartoon Network float during the 2008 Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Like, I mean, that's, you know, when it's sort of jumped the shark, as they say.
Yes, yeah.
The thing is, he was quoted in an interview not so long ago that even as big as Rickrolling got and as many millions and millions of views as the video got on YouTube, he said he earned like maybe $12 in royalties through the whole thing just because of the way, you know,
Yeah.
record contracts work and all that kind of shit. So
It's a bummer.
yeah, if you have money to spare, send a few dollars to Rick Astley.
Support Rick Astley.
The next one is "Sweet Child of Mine" from Guns N' Roses. Yeah. And I was reading about it, and the song was kind of almost composed as a mistake. Slash was just messing around on his guitar one day and played something, and someone, Izzy Stradlin, said play it again, and then added some chords, and Duff McKagan added a bass line. And the whole time this was going on, Axl Rose is like listening from the next room and starts
We're having
writing some
sex in a
lyrics.
recording booth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, something like that.
Wait, I hear a song. Stop.
I need a lady.
Yeah.
Bring me a lady.
Bring me a groupie.
And you know, I mean, we all know how much the gentlemen in Guns N' Roses like each other now, but it's kind of an interesting story that they were able to gel and mesh in such a way that, you know, they created this sort of classic song. Sheryl Crow did a cover of the song in 1999 for the movie Big Daddy, the Adam Sandler film, which, you know, is what you would imagine. And I heard a lady covered at the Des Moines Farmers Market a couple weeks ago, and it was not on fleek. It was not.
Wait, was it just a lady, like, was it a patron, or was it a lady that was performing?
It was one of they have musicians that
Yes.
the farmer's market hires in their place throughout down the street.
I wish it had just been a lady in like a line for something.
Me
Just
too.
started belting it out.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, this gal just had an acoustic guitar, and she was just singing "Sweet Child of Mine," and
On a Saturday morning.
Yep. The next one is "So Emotional" by Whitney Houston. I mean, I've talked about Whitney Houston plenty, so I don't need to dwell on this a lot now, but the song was written by Billy Steinberg and Tom Kelly, who also wrote some of the biggest hits of the entire 1980s decade, including Madonna's "Like a Virgin," "True Colors" by Cyndi Lauper, "Alone" by Heart, and "Eternal Flame" by the Bangles. So, the next one, "Heaven is a Place on Earth" by Belinda Carlisle. That's our friend Eric's favorite song of all time, and rightfully so.
Well, I don't know if it's just Eric's, because I remember being on a party bus with you on Eric's 40th birthday, and we were maybe 10 minutes into the ride, and we were driving downtown, and the door was open, and you started blasting this song for everyone to hear. Yep.
And all of downtown Des Moines had never been the same.
It was like 7 p.m. on a Saturday night, and they were like, well, there goes that bus.
Yep. That was the night everybody cried, too, right?
That was the night that most of us cried, and I got lost, and it was a night. There was lots of vomiting.
Maybe I played "Heaven is a Place on Earth" too early. Maybe that's what the problem was.
You should have played
We
it
peaked too
when there were
soon.
3 straight guys in the Blazing Saddle bathroom crying.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
should have played it. That's when I should have played it. I recently discovered something about this song that I did not know. Michelle Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas, China Phillips of Wilson Phillips, and Diane Warren, the famous songwriter, were all backup singers on the song.
Really?
Interesting.
And the music video was directed by Diane Keaton, the actress
What?
Diane Keaton.
What?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do a deep dive on that.
Yeah, it's a strange video, but I mean, good for Diane Keaton. The next one, "Could Have Been" by Tiffany. It's a song about teenage heartbreak, and you try to be understanding, but also it's like, get used to it,
You're
man.
15. Also, she was redhead, and I loved her.
This song was featured in an episode of Growing Pains where Mike Seaver, played by Garbage Pile Kirk Cameron, has put off writing an English paper until the last minute. Considering what we know about Kirk Cameron now, I mean, that's actually probably one of his most appealing qualities of procrastination.
Yeah.
He was probably reading Left Behind, and he just,
The next song, called "Hands to Heaven" by a band named Breathe, and hand to God, I was sure I'd never heard this song before in my life, but I watched the video on YouTube and I kind of vaguely remember the song.
Okay.
But the video is B.A.D. bad. It features a ballerina dancing alone in a mansion, and it's just all weird and gross. And,
Okay.
yeah, it's strange.
No thanks.
And the last one, "Roll With It" by Steve Winwood.
Oh my god, I hate this fucking song.
I feel like this song is like what dads would play in the car to try to convince our kids they're still cool, and I don't think it ever worked.
And it was everywhere. For years, it wouldn't go away. God, I hate that song.
It's not a good song.
Fuck you, Steve Winwood, for that earworm. Damn it.
I loved your reaction to that.
But you're so right. It's probably like dads just go, roll with it, baby.
I don't think I know that song.
Good.
Okay.
Don't
I'm gonna
ever
keep it
listen
that
to
way.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
That was
great.
lovely blast from the past. So
We've
many
been
good
blasted.
songs. So blasted. Blasted hard from the past. On that note, let's travel.
Let's travel.
Let's travel over to Seoul, Korea, for the Olympics opening ceremony in 1988.
Oh, no. Yep.
Which I didn't remember this little tidbit, but this is what happened. So
I did.
this is very brief, but since 1920, doves had been released at Olympic opening ceremonies, and for the 1988 Olympics, birds were trained for a year in preparation for the event. They were supposed to fly around the stadium in circles until they reached the rim of the stadium and flew off in 5 different directions, because apparently you can train birds to do this.
This seems like this was destined to fail. Like,
Oh yeah. However, when the opening ceremony was going on, the birds flew erratically and landed all over the stadium, including on the cauldron where the Olympic flame was to be lit. And when Olympic torchbearer Son Ki-chong approached and lit the flame, some of the doves didn't leave and were burnt alive
Oh, no.
in front of a live studio audience. Or not a studio audience, the live crowd, and then everyone on TV.
Yeah.
And because people were traumatized by seeing doves burned alive on TV, the outcry led to the replacement of the live birds. So they never used birds ever again since 1988.
Even without the outcry, I think we could have gotten there.
We could have gotten there.
Maybe we shouldn't be using birds. Like, turns out our training doesn't work.
Also, it seems like it was probably added stress. Like, why do we need to worry about the timing of birds when we got so many other elements of the ceremonies? Let's focus on the athletes. Let's focus on all these things. Who cares about the fucking birds?
Best case scenario, if they do what they're supposed to, people are like, oh,
cool.
And move on. Like, they're not
exactly.
like, do you remember the doves from the 19... Now they do.
In 1988, they remembered it. Yeah.
But and they're so small. I mean, doves aren't that big. Like, I mean, unless you were seeing it on camera or like 5 feet away from it at the arena.
Yeah.
Like,
I
people on
do
the other side of the
wonder-
arena probably couldn't even see them.
Did they have like jumbotrons then? Because
I
if
bet they
they
did,
were,
yeah.
they were probably like zoomed in on the Olympic flame, and
like-
TV audiences probably saw
To
it.
think the dove caught on fire and tried to fly away and then just dropped, burning dove just dropped from the sky and like landed on some poor person who was just like, I'm getting the Olympics. Oh God!
It probably didn't help the satanic panic. Like people were watching this
Oh,
and
you're
like,
right.
Yep.
Satan is in Seoul.
Proof.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, my gosh. Well,
So there you go. Birds
Smells like chicken.
on fire.
I'm going to follow that up with a series of You Said What?
Oh,
In 1988.
I can't
Just
wait.
some real quick tidbits. The first You Said What was Cosmopolitan magazine ran an erroneous article stating that women had no chance of contracting HIV from sex with a man because HIV could not be transmitted in the missionary position.
What the Bork and Bork kind of Bork is that?
Wild. Wild.
As we all know,
So I
it can't be
assume
transmitted.
That 1988 was the year that we all hired fact checkers.
Apparently,
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Body's got a way to shut that stuff down.
Yeah, yeah.
that's right. When you're missionary, as you're supposed to be, and just
Yes,
letting it happen.
That's God's position. He
Yes.
wouldn't let anything
no.
happen to you.
You just look away and just let it happen.
Just let
then
it
you
happen.
won't get HIV.
Yeah. And every woman that's ever contracted an STD was like, what?
Yeah. I don't think that's science.
I don't think that's science. Followed by Pete Maravich, who during a 1974 interview said, I don't want to play 10 years in the NBA and then die of a heart attack when I'm 40. He died of a heart attack in 1988 at age 40 after a 10-year career in the NBA.
Oh,
What
wow.
So,
Is he a wizard?
yeah,
How did he
I
know
mean,
that?
the level of manifestation in that is beyond.
Maybe he's the one that told him that you couldn't get HIV
Yeah,
in the
maybe.
missionary
And
position.
maybe God was just like, yeah, no, we can't have this guy living. So let's make some karma.
No,
Let's make
this
an
guy.
example.
Let's make an example out of him. The last, you said what? In 1988 was Gary Hart, who was running for president.
yeah.
And he invited the media to follow him around. After he was alleged to be womanizer, he was quoted as saying, follow me around. I don't care. I'm serious. Members of the media complied, and he was caught having an affair 2 weeks later with Donna Rice. So I don't know if his quote meant, I don't care what you find, or you're never going to find anything. But either way, 2 weeks
I
later.
bet he just thought, like, oh, if I just say it, they won't do it.
Yeah.
Like, because wasn't this the first kind of time where paparazzi really were starting to dig into candidates' lives? Up to this point, it would just been
Yes.
like a gentleman's agreement. Like, we don't
Right.
talk about that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
he was like inviting it in. And I think that if I remember, because I watched a documentary about this, I think that there was also a level of, he thought that he could use the media to sort of help his image. Like if they saw him as a real guy, that would bolster his chances. He just also thought that there would be things that were off limits or that he could control. And silly Gary Hart in 1988
Silly goose.
learned that. Yeah, he graduated from Silly Goose University in 1988.
What a dumb Bork.
Yeah, what a dumb Bork.
Jeez.
1988, giving us great pull-out quotes.
They probably, Cosmopolitan also probably approved the pull-out method.
I would think. Yeah.
Yeah, like, this is
You
just
won't
good
get pregnant or
science.
HIV.
Yeah.
Done.
Done.
Best method.
What a year.
I know.
Something else.
Something else. And now we've done all the years. We've done them.
Uh-huh.
Done them good. And now we're going to do them again.
Oh, boy. Second round.
We're going to probe real deep
Yeah.
on the next years.
We're calling this sloppy seconds this round.
Can we brand that on our social media? The sloppy seconds
sloppy
round?
Seconds,
Okay.
1988. That's what they're going to all be. Yeah, I love it.
All right, get ready for that.
Get ready for that.
Fuzzy Memories is a Broads and Books production. It's hosted by Heath Smith, Aaron Johnston, and Amy Lee Lillard. Follow us at Fuzzy Memories Pod on Instagram for clips and highlights. And follow us at Broads and Books Productions for updates on new shows coming your way. See you next time. All right. Will you guys speak into your microphones?
Can I speak from here? Is that
Nope.
working?
No. No.
Hello.
Oh, hey.
All right.
How's that?
Yep.
Okay.
Although you were speaking loud enough that it did show up on here.
Oh, good.
It
So I could just shout. Just jokes.
There's so many times my primary editing task is to reduce the volume when we're all laughing because it peaks out and I'm like, well,
I always try and think about that and move away, but then when Heath gets me, it just comes out.
No,
and then
I mean it's an easy fix. It's just
okay, good.
That's
'Cause I
one of my
feel
primary
bad.
tasks. Yeah.
I feel
And to
bad.
cut out any like super long pauses where like my brain just has stopped functioning or like Heath has said something and we're just dumbfounded.
Yeah, we're just
Just to shorten, tighten those up.
or how many times we say you can cut this, but
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Start cutting.
Yep.